And I notice there's a new sign on the wall here. The seating capacity in this room is 67 people, so just in case anyone didn't know that, okay?
That's not a new sign.
Can we just get a motion to approve the minutes of our last meeting? Supervisor Simpson, seconded by Supervisor Stroud. All those in favor?
Aye.
Wayne, go for it.
Okay. Since I didn't request a meeting, but I'm still here, I figured that you guys were meeting, I'd make you have something to do. There's a agenda packet there for Supervisor Donald. First order of business on the committee action request is the state has announced the funding under the Smart Growth Program. It's due the end of March, and I sent them some of the materials from the First Wilderness Marketing Program, and they were encouraging us to apply. There's no match required. It's up to $75,000. And so we would look to submit an application to implement selected components of the marketing program. And so asking the committee's consideration of that request.
I'll make the
A
motion.
motion made by Supervisor Strauss, seconded by Supervisor McDonald. Any discussion?
And so the scope of this marketing plan will include all the communities up along the
Yes.
First Wilderness?
Yes. It is quarter-wide activities. One would be a geocaching trail throughout the quarter. Another would be, much like the Chester Challenge, would be to do in each community 2 hikes. You do a pamphlet, you get a something which we haven't quite figured out. So it's that type of stuff that encompasses the corridor.
Supervisor Bramer.
I find it interesting that they're allowing us to do this under Smart Growth, but you said they encouraged us.
Yes, these are implementation grants, not planning grants, and they are looking for regional projects. And so when I sent in to Dylan Walworth, who is a rep from DEC on this, I sent him the marketing plan, and he emailed me back and said, yes, it was eligible, and they are looking for regional projects, so.
Great, thank you.
All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Against?
The second thing is, during the creation of the budget, apparently the GIS salaries got put into full-time salaries instead of part-time. Treasurer's office has asked us to move those over from 110 to 130, so it's a housekeeping request.
Supervisor Bramer, seconded by Supervisor Stroud. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great.
That's really about all I had. The one thing I would like to just inform the committee, I know a number of you know Martin Fitzgerald in our office. His sister passed away yesterday. He was 55, so,
Young.
and he's on the town board in Hague, so just thought I'd pass that along for those that might not be aware.
Okay, thank you very much. Ed, did you have...
Yes, I have just a few things here. I want to just pass out in a second here some attachments. One, I just wanted to point out that we've had 2 significant leadership changes in our region corporately in the past year. One is with AngioDynamics in Queensbury, have replaced Joe Devato with a individual that's very well familiar with medical device industries in the area, and actually was over in Covidien in Argyle as part, when it was Tyco, then Covidien over there, and we have reached out and have been having conversations with their office in terms of getting more information. They are looking at some expansive concepts at AngioDynamics. AngioDynamics.
Yeah, but who's?
Klumer, James Klumer, C-L-U-M-E-R is the new CEO. And I think that there is some potential for some increased employment at AngioDynamics. I shouldn't have said that, but it is positive news. The other one, and I think again in the positive vein, has been the purchase by Nielsen of Grace Notes in Queensbury. I think that this is in my opinion, and I think another's a better fit for the Grace Note employees to be associated with Nielsen. They have a very positive outlook at the Glens Falls, Queensbury employees in the region, and I think that they're looking to continue to work and develop and strengthen our area with Grace Notes. I've expressed, and others have as well, that we're prepared to assist in any type of workforce training, redevelopment, or equipment needs that they may have in the area. Anytime there are changes corporately like that, we really want to push forward and welcome the new Nielsen people. The other thing is it's a New York State-based corporation. Their headquarters is in New York City. And of course Nielsen is known more probably for their TV ratings more than anything else, but they are branching into this area very well. Some other activities that we've undertaken, we recently met with the town of Queensbury to review our activities this past year and the forecast ahead. And one of the things I want to pass out now is kind of an update on a couple of the areas that we have, and that is with the infrastructure. Back in 2014, the Adirondack Gateway Council, and it's right behind the first two pages here, put together an assemblage of infrastructure enhancements to growth in our area. Particularly today, I'm going to talk about wastewater treatment facilities, storm sewer, water issues. And at that time, we had pegged for Warren and Washington counties in northern Saratoga approximate capital improvements of $102 million. At this point, based on the final number at the time when we started this, the Lake George project was not defined. We're estimating our capital needs for Warren, Washington, northern Saratoga for just sewer, sanitary separation of about $145 million. And obviously, this ties into the infrastructure discussions that are going on in Washington. While they're not all on the same page, President Trump has a concept of public-private investment with tax credits. The difficulty with that issue is you're only going to be able to utilize those tax credits when there is a high volume or very great amount of revenue stream that is coming in. Senator Schumer, representing the minority in the Senate, has proposed more of a direct traditional financing of coming up with some kind of bond program. Governor Cuomo has also weighed in on this, and I think it's important that at least they're discussing this issue. The State of the State, that the State of the Union, that the President is supposed to be addressing it a little bit, but I think the tax credit idea needs to be really flushed out a little bit more, because I'm not sure that it's going to get down to our smaller projects up here in the North Country with just tax credits. So I think that we're going to be looking for traditional grant programs to assist the communities. Lake George needs a new wastewater treatment plant. Mayor Blaze and Dennis have done an excellent job in promoting that. They're looking for around $9 million in state federal grant monies out of $18 million. The City of Glens Falls continues to need to source separate storm sewer from sanitary lines. Queensbury is looking at some separation and some assistance there, and in Washington County together. Additionally, through the grant that our region received, we are continuing our discussions on a regional basis on biosolids plan. John, did you want to mention anything along those lines of what the committee so far has been doing?
No, I was reading your
Okay,
report here,
okay.
and you did mention the biosolids.
Yes, I did.
The thing that we're looking at now, and
Yes.
we're looking at governance structure, management structure, as well as what form of treatment would be most suitable for this
Right.
region.
And that includes the Glens Falls wastewater treatment plant that serves multiple communities, including Queensbury, Village of South Glens Falls, and Moreau. and we're also, and part of that is Washington County Sewer District as well. So what I want to do is present that to you. This also incorporated study and estimations on the efforts of bridges and roads in our area. And it's interesting to note that the Adirondack Glens Falls Transportation Council evaluated that there is a need of a total of $2 billion that will be required over the next 20 years for this portion of the Adirondack Glens Falls Transportation Council, which basically takes in Warren, Washington, and northern Saratoga County. Currently, we receive approximately $750 million a year that is programmed between now and 2035. So we are considerably short of what our needs are with the bridges. As you know, there's certain bridges in Warren County, Washington County, that are eligible for state monies and others are not, as well as small little bridges. I mean, Matt, it's taken you a number of years to get where you are because of the lack of funding on that one bridge in Horicon. So again, that's going to be part of a greater infrastructure process. The Governor, Cuomo, has kind of separated the two by advancing monies for wastewater treatment and water facilities and pulling out of that the other issues of bridges and roads. And there's discussions of possibly a bond. There's pros and cons of doing bond acts within New York State. The history of approval has been pretty rocky for approval of lately of bond issues in that particular area. So infrastructure becomes a very important key. We just want to continue to be prepared so that when these programs advance, we will have an opportunity, and I'll be sitting down with Jeff from the Public Works and just making sure that we have sufficient data to move ahead. In your packet, I've also included the mapping that we want to do here. First, I want to show you the ad that we have been running in some of our regional papers as well as in the Capital District. Again, 4 identifiable sites that we are promoting. And when we move on to the I-87 exit study, GIS, we hope to be able to gather from that additional sites that will be ready for development. We have a very short period of time to respond to any inquiry that we receive from the Department of Economic Development and other sources from site locators. And right now, we really don't have a handle, with the exception of like exit 18, we really don't have a handle on the number of available sites, what is it zoned, water and sewer, and as well as just planning. And so what we're going to be doing is meeting with the respective communities along those exits in northern part, like exit 25. We'll be sitting down with the town of Chester and the town of Horicon and the planning board and town board to not only find out what is acceptable under the APA, but what is your preference out of those land uses that are up there that you would like to see us go after, so that we don't waste a lot of time if we get an inquiry on something that is not necessarily acceptable to the towns in that respective area. I still will pass that on, but again, recognizing what our priority, and then we can take this data, you're all going to have this, and we will also be submitting this to the state of New York, so that we will start right at exit 18 and go right up the Northway and develop really a case study of each of these exits, what type of land is available, the access of water, sewer, infrastructure, broadband capacity, and the planning tools. And one of those examples is the last 2 pages here is a beautiful picture. It looks almost like a manicured golf course or something here, but it's actually a picture of kind of a polluted hazardous site, and that's the Sivagagi site. John has been working tirelessly at this with the State of New York and the Department of State and the Brownfield Opportunity Area to work with the present owners of that land so that some comparable, compatible use of the land and residents in the area can go forward. Town of Queensbury is submitting an application that's due next month. EDC strongly supports and will work with the Town of Queensbury with that particular application. Chazen has been the engineer on site. But the key here is going to be working with, and John really has pursued heavily BSAF, that's the current owner of the Ciba-Geigy, to have them become more receptive to some development ideas.
And we're meeting with them too.
The key here is because certain portions of this site are relatively hazardous, quite hazardous. This was paint chemicals in particular areas, more as you get toward the city line. And the picture in here, you're looking toward the city of Glens Falls, and you can see in that particular area, as you get close to the border area, that's really where there's been some heavy material deposited there. And so there are a number of issues that the town will have to deal with, and the state in going forward if we can get approval here. But it's a site that has great rail behind it, right along the river is the rail, and adjacent you have the Warren Street transportation system there. So it's a great location, and it's just trying to find the right mix in what we can do and can't do in that particular area. So those were the kind of the key areas I wanted to touch briefly on this morning. Infrastructure is very important to us, and we just need to be prepared. Many times we have long leads on applications, and sometimes we have a short period of time of maybe 4 to 6 weeks to put an application in. So if we haven't done our homework in detail, we're going to be out in the cold on this. But there'll be ample opportunity, I believe, here, but we just need to start doing a little bit of work, get updates on what the cost of our road repairs, more importantly, the capital of bridges in the area, and water, wastewater treatment. So, any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ed, on that brownfield site, does the county have any responsibility over that? Is that anything that we should see on our horizon?
You know, depending on the usage, you know, and I think in a potential developer then backing in, I would say that possibly you utilize your Warren Washington County IDA for some assistance in that particular area. It's really convincing the current owners that there are more flexible uses of that property than what they really envision. Their standards of remediation and their standards of reuse are higher than EPA or DEC standards, so that there is less of a plate of economic opportunities, and I think Queensbury wants to get a little bit more clarification on that process.
Yeah, well, what I'd like to see is a community solar, where we put a ballast type solar, minimal, if no penetration in the soil, even the lines could be run conduit connecting the whole system, and the benefactors would be the middle and low income folks of the surrounding community.
And that's where the issue of, they did topsoil replacement of so many feet down. So some of the standard thoughts that the town might have had before of mixed-use development and so forth, they can't permit trees to be planted there because those roots are going to go below the amount of new topsoil. You're going into the hazardous areas like that. So they're very sensitive to that, and I think rightfully so. But I think the areas of what John's talking about, or even so, you could have some development right along the Warren Street area as long as it was a kind of asphalted in those particular areas. So I think Queensbury wants to get clarification, and we're there to be helpful, and then start looking at some potential development in that area there. It's not an overnight project, but I think the solar, we can name one panel after Ron Montesi, who's been a great advocate of those solar panels out there as well. So, any other questions? Okay.
Thank you, Ed. Just a quick observation, page 8 into your presentation here, it talks about the roads to be improved.
Yep.
Other road project, as well as bicycle pedestrian issues. I think it's an interesting page in terms of, some of the projects that are coming up, and I have, when it says roads to be improved, does that mean that those are scheduled improvements, that it's...
Just, what Adirondack Glens Falls Transportation Council has a responsibility every year to advance out kind of a 5-year program, and this has been identified through a number of sources from the state of New York, from the county DPWs that are involved, from the planning departments that are involved to provide suggested estimated costs for bridge repair work in the area. And obviously, we consider importantly, improvements for roads to allow bicycling and pedestrian walkway is important as well. And there are some constraints, obviously, as you try to go up around the lake to expand your road too much. But in other areas, Queensbury, the city of Glens Falls, and other areas, your bike trails and your pedestrian trails, Wayne's continuation with the First Wilderness, again, all ties into this. And Claudia's presentation later this morning on tying into the Governor Cuomo's, trail development is also kind of key, so that they're all pure projects. For instance, we have not included a Governor Cuomo's initiative on the trail development into that number that we forecast at this particular point. The numbers that we've included somewhat involve more of existing trail development, or in certain areas where they would tie in the connectivity between the communities of Queensbury, Glens Falls, or going north. Obviously, we have the Lake George, trail 9 miles from Glens Falls. Also going east, and there's efforts and discussions of a plan was done about 7 years ago by Elon Design to incorporate in doing more connection south into South Glens Falls, and we have on our books, no funds yet, to have a pedestrian bike bridge across the Hudson River to tie in Haviland's Cove to the recreational facility in South Glens Falls. Along with, on the books right now, as part of our DRI, is to look at putting in some pedestrian bike trails, bridges over the feeder canal in at least a couple locations.
Great. Thank you. Does anyone have any additional information or comments? None seen. Can we get a motion to adjourn? Supervisor Bramer, second by Supervisor McDonald. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, both.
Thank you.